What is good, everybody? Welcome into the Bluebloods official podcast of FCS Football Central on SI. I am joined today by a very, very special guest, new South Dakota State head coach, Dan Jackson. Coach, how we feeling today, man? I know it's been a whirlwind for you, getting in as the head coach, recruiting, things like that, man. But how you doing today?
No, I'm doing great. Motivated, ready to roll. We got down watching the guys work out a little bit ago, and they're hungry and really pushing it today. And we got the whole staff here now, so staff meetings are a little bit more full, and connect with those guys here after this.
To talk a little bit about your process getting back, obviously one season at Idaho, and you were set to follow Coach Eck to New Mexico. Talk a little bit about the process. What was it like when you got the call, and was it a no-brainer decision, or was it a tough decision to decide whether to be a DC at the FBS level or come back to South Dakota State to be the head coach?
I think when you're with good people, nothing's ever a no-brainer, and I try to think things through. After our quarterfinal game versus Montana State, that evening kind of found out what was going on with us, going to New Mexico. And Jason's a good friend of mine, and man, I respect him, and he's helped me a ton. So it was kind of like, yeah, let's go do this. Did have an opportunity to probably stay at Idaho as the head coach there. Just really chose to go with Jason and bet on myself a little bit. But when the South Dakota State situation came up, it's just a little bit different for me. I played here. I helped build this place. And it's somewhere that a dream of mine is to be a head coach. And it became more clear over the course of my career that it wasn't just to be a head coach, but it was to be a head coach at the right place, at the right time, with the right people. And so when all those things came together, once all they did, then it became a no-brainer for me.
What was the biggest challenge? Obviously, with having a family, moving, and the logistics of it all is difficult. But also, a lot of guys went to Washington State with Jimmy. You're late in the recruiting cycle. The transfer portal, we already know what that is. When a coach leaves, everybody potentially is looking for other opportunities. What was your single biggest challenge when you finally accepted the job?
Yeah, I think first, so you take a head coaching job in a lot of different scenarios. Some people take over something. Some people have to hire a couple guys. Some people are currently head coaches and they just bring their whole team and staff. And it's a little easier for me. I couldn't have drawn it up better because I love the opportunity to build a staff from scratch. So to be able to hire all 10 assistants, some people think is a challenge. I thought it was pretty cool. These are my guys. These are guys that are going to be loyal to each other. And the way that college football is fluid right now with rosters, that was probably the biggest initial challenge. But we have such good support. I mean, whether it's Coach Stiglmeyer reaching out to guys and telling them to be patient, we'll get the right guy, whether it's our JFPA, our Jackrabbit Farmers Players Association, those guys hitting guys up. And then just a few key guys on our roster that have some courage and some fortitude. So, I mean, Quentin Christensen, one of our offensive linemen, had been getting tampered with for the last 6 months, and he chooses to stay and be vocal about it. And I think Chase Mason's got a shot to be one of the best quarterbacks in the country, and he's vocal about staying. So it was the biggest challenge was just not being able to be together, Zach. I had to call them all. I couldn't just have a team meeting. But chipped away at that, and it was a lot of fun, and I feel great about – I will tell you this, we kept a lot more guys than they anticipated.
That is the truth, because I think a lot of people expected a mass exodus with how late the change came. You haven't been at South Dakota State since 2019, Coach. What are some of the biggest differences you noticed just in the program since the last time you were coaching at South Dakota State?
No, I see. I'm watching film, and it's 20,000 people in the stadium, not 12. And that's a byproduct of winning, but it's also a byproduct of just us doing the right things the right way. Over the course of history, but really probably the last 15 years, there's just been this steady build of fan support and community involvement. And walking through the hallways, it feels a little bit different when there's 2 national title trophies sitting right there. And those are things that drove me every day as an assistant to be able to do those things and see these rings and trophies around here. And was a part of those things from afar. And so I think the mindset when you win one national title, you get hungry for another one. When you win another one, there's a standard now that we all knew. And as coaches, we set that standard before the trophies were won. But now that they're here, I would say just that the overall standard and expectations have risen, which is awesome because that's exactly what I want to be a part of.
Obviously coming from the Stig tree, man, but you've coached under some amazing head coaches. Coach Hammock at Northern Illinois, Clark Lee at Vanderbilt, who just had one of the best seasons in Vanderbilt history this past year. Obviously, Coach Eck is one of the rising stars in the profession. What are some learning experiences that you've had over these past few years away from South Dakota State? And then even going all the way back to coaching under Stig, who it needs a statue immediately up in Brookings for what he's done at that program.
We're working on the statue. We're working. No, but when I broke off here in 2019, it was tough to leave. South Dakota State is a special place that, for whatever reason, when it gets a hold of you, it's hard to let go. But I honestly left because I wanted to gain the right experience so I could come back and be the head coach and be able to do it at the highest of levels. And being able to work with Coach Hammock was crazy because we kind of rebuilt that team a little bit. It was his first stint as a head coach. He was coming out of the NFL. So, I mean, I learned a lot from him, but I would highlight just the player development and recruiting process and personnel, how to build a roster was really NFL model. And so got a chance to learn from him. And then Coach Lee, I mean, I'll tell you this, like Clark and I are close, and the situation at Vanderbilt was a challenge. I mean, you're in the SEC without any NIL, with academic restrictions, with facilities that are outdated. And he took that job on. He just took it on head on. And the way he attacked every day and how he had a clear, clean process, and it didn't change based on the result. And him staying the course is a huge reason why they had success this year. And some other things open up with NIL and transfer portal. But no, amazing experience with Coach. And then the cool thing about working with Jason last year is, like, it's cool to just be like his right-hand guy. I mean, everything that he's a big idea guy. I'm a big idea guy. We try to be creative, and our offices are right next to each other. So I just got to walk with him on how to build that program and take it to new heights. So, and finally, I mean, Coach Stig, he just exemplifies being a head coach every day. Just being in one staff meeting with him is really enlightening and motivating and encouraging. But I just learned from him is belief in your players, just unwavering belief, and they don't need to prove anything to you. You should believe in them from the jump.
Did any of those guys reach out to you when you accepted the job or while you were considering and give you any advice for your first season as head coach?
Heck yeah. Those guys, I talk to them all the time. I don't say exactly what Coach Hammock said, but he said, you better take that. You better take that job, man. You were built for this. He just got a way to instill confidence in Coach Hammock and I are tight. And he, he's like, man, you're going to be better than the last guy. You're going to be better than the guy. Like, that belief that he can instill in you is awesome. And Coach Lee, honestly, was pretty emotional telling him that I had taken and got the job, which was really cool to see. And then Coach Stig's still here in town. So he's helps out here and there. He's working over at the foundation, raising some money for me. And Jason and I talk every few days. So, the support system's been awesome. Those are my guys.
That's amazing to hear. Now, you talk about building a staff, and I heard you in a recent interview before you had your staff together, like, man, we need to get this room full. Did you have a short list together? Did you know who your number one targets were? And what was just the process of building a staff this late in the cycle?
Yeah, the process for me was first get our coordinators. That's offense, defense, special teams. And I knew pretty clearly I had a couple names at each of those spots. And I knew once we got those filled, everything would fall in. And to be able to bring Eric Eisens back here was a no-brainer for me. I've seen his work here. Go back to when he was at South Dakota State. There's always been a 1,000-yard receiver, a 2,000-yard back, and a great quarterback, and NFL guys on the O-line. Shoot, the running backs. I mean, we got more NFL running backs than most people. And so his interest and connection to South Dakota made it easy for him, too. It's a great fit. And Coach Bergstrom being able to go off and get some head coaching experience. But, I mean, I was an assistant under Brian, so I know how he teaches and how he coaches the coaches, and he understands the defensive system. So we're going to change and we're going to be different schematically with some things, but he knows how it was, just even a year ago. And Isaiah Jackson is a hire that I can't say enough about. Isaiah, as our special teams coordinator, big time guy, culture, personable, relating to every guy on the team, really professional. I mean, Isaiah coming back and trusting us meant a lot to me. And filling it in with all of our assistants. I could go down the line, but like Mike Bankston's got a funny story about how he got hired as our O-line coach. He's going to be a game changer. Benedetto, Vince being a former player and alum, being able to lock the state down for us from a recruiting standpoint, the state of South Dakota. Deontay Cooper worked with them. I knew he was going to be coming here. He reminds me of me 12 years ago or whatever. And then defensively, hiring a coordinator with Marcus McKinnell to help coach the coordinators is going to be huge. Zane Busakis as our linebacker coach is like an uber talented young guy. And then Logan McCormick at D-line, he was with Christian Smith at Northwestern the previous couple years. Christian and I are great friends, and Christian really is the one that started a lot of the defensive line culture and tradition we have here. So, I mean, there's more people to touch on, but this is the best staff in the country.
How much did recruiting play into building your staff? You guys have a lot of Dakota connections there, and I've heard you talk about locking down the state. Was that number one priority when building a staff, is to lock down South Dakota? And then I even heard you talk about getting into Nebraska, getting into North Dakota, getting into the Midwest, and getting those guys that other programs are overlooking.
It does. It did play a part in it, but truthfully, it kind of fell together how I would have wanted it from connections and relationships. I mean, we hire our receiver coach, Luke Banks. I mean, big-time offensive coordinator. Look what he did at Virginia Union a year ago. And I'm following him because of the football acumen. Well, he's from Iowa. I think the guy knows everybody in the state of Iowa. Mike Bankston being from Iowa, Marcus McKinnell being able to have connections in Chicago and Wisconsin. And it kind of fell together. And I would say the one hire that Vince Benedetto is an extremely talented coach, and he's really relatable, and he knows South Dakota State. But he's also been coaching the best high school program in the state for a while now, and he knows the coaches and obviously the kids in the area and has little ends. And so, but it kind of fell together. I mean, Zane being our linebacker coach, being from Nebraska, I was talking to him earlier today. He's down there hustling in Omaha, and I've obviously got some experience in that area, so he's touching base with me as we go. But no, it kind of fell into place perfectly from a recruiting fit standpoint. And yeah, we shouldn't have to go too far. If we get the best, I don't see any reason why a kid from South Dakota, Nebraska, Iowa, Minnesota, Kansas City, Colorado, North Dakota, Wisconsin, I just don't see any reason why they wouldn't come anywhere but South Dakota State. If they don't have a Power 4 offer from their home state school, seems like a no-brainer to me, at least.
Yeah, because I think it's pretty obvious over the past few years you guys have sent more people to the league than most G5 programs in the country. So I'm with you on that. Now, getting into recruiting strategy, obviously the landscape, it seems like it's changing every year, just drastically, from the transfer portal to high school development to the JUCOs. And there's a strong Midwest presence for JUCOs, especially that Kansas area. What's your approach? Is there a percentage you're looking for? Is it year by year? What's your recruiting strategy with all the different avenues you can recruit now?
Yeah, I would say that strategically, I still want to recruit high school guys, and if that's 80% or 85%, and there's a lot of reason for that. First, I love development of players, and so I like watching a guy's film and then knowing that he's a good player, but really being able to see what he's going to be in a year and a half or 2 years. That's something where just kind of my talent, I would say, lies, and so I really want to still invest in the high school kids. And I think with the transfer portal, there's some advantages with that too. I mean, by July, a lot of programs have moved on from high school kids. And so there's really not that many people evaluating senior tape. So I think there's going to be some nuance to be able to navigate that and be able to get some guys that maybe you couldn't have. But I do think in it's really roster building is kind of how I look at this. Is the great thing for us in the transfer portal is I know who's going to get tampered with by week 5. I know who's going to be getting reached out to. And so I'm going to build a fence around our players, and I'm going to make it this such a special experience that they won't leave. But I can also have a little bit of foresight on knowing hey, these are 3 guys that we know, are going to be contacted, and so let's replace those guys. And that to me is where the transfer portal comes into place. The biggest thing with the portal is I want to continue to build strong relationships with the Power 4 schools around here, the junior colleges around here, the Division II schools around here. I think it's having good relationships with those staffs and programs that can benefit you too, to make sure you bring in the right fit. You go into the portal and you miss on a guy, whether it's character or ability, those are detrimental to the program. And so we need to be just as diligent with portal guys as we are with high school. But yeah, let's have a culture where nobody wants to leave it. Let's have a culture where everybody wants to be a part of it. And then let's be think ahead and not be naive on what's going on with our current roster to make sure we stay ahead of things.
I love that you mentioned not being naive because I feel like there's a lot of coaches that are in doubt sometimes or in denial, and like, man, we're just going to keep our guys. No one should be reaching out to them when that's not the case. When you got guys at the FCS who have reported and told in interviews that they've been offered six figures in the middle of the season to leave at the end of the year, and they're committing before the season is over. So it's a crazy business. I do want to ask though, we've seen new head coaches take a lot of different approaches in terms of play calling as the head coach. How involved are you going to be in defensive play calling for South Dakota State?
No, great question. I'm not going to call the defense. And I think there's a level of maturity when you become a head coach that you need to be able to trust the guys that you hired. And we have Coach Berge called, I think he's one of the better play callers. When we were here back in 2018 and those things together, I just felt like he was always ahead and he was always right. And I felt like there wasn't a lot of calls that didn't put our players in best position. But at the same time, I'm passionate about, football and defensive football. Where I want to help is I want to help drive the culture, and I want it to look how it needs to look. And I'm going to coach the coaches is going to be my first goal. So if I have thoughts and opinions on scheme or drill work or technique, I'm going to take it to the coaches first in an educational, teach, what I'd want to see. And then on game days, be able to manage the game. But no, I'm planning on doing my job as the head coach and letting my guys do their job as coordinators.
One of the biggest challenges as new regimes come in and out of college programs is continuing the championship culture. The trophy case has continued to expand at South Dakota State, and one of the things with the rivalry at North Dakota State is they've continued the championship culture over many head coaches. In your opinion, what's the biggest challenge to establishing that continuity of building a championship culture at a collegiate program in today's age of college football?
Yeah, I think it's about not forgetting where you came from. And credit to North Dakota State. I've got a lot of respect for that program. And they've been able to sustain it over, as you said, multiple head coaches. For us, I think the big deal is nothing's changed. The work hasn't changed. Once you win, you can't. There is maybe a level of confidence and belief that you may have in the program that you can get it done. But where we're going to keep it going is I'm going back to 2012 mindset when we had a grass field and we had to practice in the Fifth Street basketball gym because we'd be preparing for a quarterfinal game in a gym or have to cancel practice because of the snow. Old Coughlin alumni, a locker room that should have been condemned. I mean, I'm gonna. Those are the guys that laid the foundation for us. The national championships were won recently, but they were established and built a long time ago. So I'm going to combine the understanding of what it took for us to get there with the confidence that once we got there, the guys now have, and I'm going to mesh those two worlds. And so, no, we're going to be, and I'm not big into this. The guys know the expectation and the standard, and we're going to talk about it, but it's about the day-to-day work for me. And that's what gives me enjoyment is we're not right now. We're not ready to win the national championship as of January 29th. But the goal is, and the fun part is getting there by the time the season rolls around.
When you look at the roster, just evaluating where the roster is right now, we still got National Signing Day next week. Spring practice is next up. Are there any position groups that you feel most confident in terms of depth, talent right now? Just kind of evaluating where the roster stands as of January 29th.
Yeah, I've just been able to see these guys run around a little bit, and I'm a firm believer in. I've watched the tape from a year ago, and you kind of have a feel for what some guys can do, but I also don't want to put any handcuffs or restrictions on guys that haven't made the plays in the games yet. There's talent on this roster. I said in my press conference, everybody's nervous about this guy portal or graduation. I mean, guys, Dallas Goddard left here one day, and it was okay. He was a good player. We found Tucker Kraft. I mean. Mason McCormick left. He starts for the Steelers now. It's okay. We've got Quentin Christensen. I mean, I feel great about our offensive line. I feel great about our depth there. I feel great about the talent in that room. And I love our defensive line. I like the physical nature in which those guys play. And to me, as a head coach, I mean, if I can feel good about the two lines of scrimmage, I'll be able to figure out the rest. Obviously, our starting quarterback, Chase, is a difference maker. And tight end, I love our tight end group. There's a ton of depth in there with guys that can do multiple things. A couple guys in that room people don't know about yet, but they will. And, areas that we need to bolster, obviously, are the places that we may have got hit. in the portal and running back and in secondary. So guys on our team will step up, and then we'll add the right pieces at those positions.
You mentioned Chase Mason, who has kind of been in the wings waiting behind Mark Gronowski, who has been one of the most successful FCS quarterbacks of all time. What are some skills that you've seen from him, leadership off the field that maybe we haven't seen? Like, what makes him the potential next face of South Dakota State?
Yeah, his confidence is through the roof. And I think he got a chance to learn behind Mark and was probably in a situation where he was ready to lead last year and step up and be the guy. But Mark played a lot of football, and Mark had a long career. And so Chase has really kind of come into his own since being here. I mean, he's in my office. He and I meet, every other day just about different things from a leadership standpoint. But I see him in the weight room. He's the first guy to come up and meet every one of our new coaches. He's a guy in the weight room that's going to every rack, making sure his teammates are doing well. And then I almost have to hold him back in the workouts because it's like, buddy, I don't need. I get it. This lift is for our D tackle. You don't need to be doing this one. But I mean, he's competitive. He is one of the toughest competitive guys that I've been around in a short time, and he's excited. He's taken the reins completely. He's in the training room an hour before workouts, an hour after workouts. He's not hurt at all, but he just is taking care of his body. He's shifted into a be a pro mindset, which is pretty cool to see.
Coach, the last question here, man. I'll let you run out. You got a lot to do today. If for someone who has not seen a Dan Jackson team take the field, what would be one word to describe what you would want the identity of your team to be?
Relentless in every phase, and that's the one word. But that starts with relentless effort, and you can see that. You can see when people play harder. I mean, everybody says play hard and effort, and I get that, but you can see when it's a little bit different, and the guys are the swarm is a little bit different, and then we're gonna be extremely violent and physical. I want a reckless group of guys out there that we're not just running to run to the ball, we're running to get paid and be physical. And I guess the last deal that I really want to see is structure. We can play really hard and we can play really physical, but we better look structured. Guys communicating, understanding what's going on, especially in this league, which has such great coaching in it.
Coach, again, I appreciate your time. I appreciate your time today. I'm looking forward to next season, man. My goal is to get up to your season opener, man. Sac State. That's going to be a huge matchup. Coach Marion, too, making his debut over there. I think it's going to be a great game. But, Coach, thank you so much, man. I'm looking forward to catching you at hopefully some press conferences this year, some games. Looking forward to having you on the show after your first season. But, guys, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe. Make sure to follow Coach Jackson, all the new South Dakota State coaches on social media, South Dakota State's official football page as well. But for Coach Jackson, myself, the Bluebloods, FCS Football Central on SI, we are out for right now.